The defense fleet burned in the darkness of space. Captain Deho watched through the viewing screen as another ship exploded, its hull torn apart by the creatures that had been hunting them for months. His forearms gripped the command console, two holding him steady while the others worked the controls. He had fought in wars for 3 centuries, but he had never seen anything like this. The Vraketherer were everywhere. They moved like a living wave through space, their ships pulsing with organic matter that seemed to breathe. They didn't just kill. They consumed. Every world they touched became part of them. Every person they caught was absorbed into their hive mind. 12 civilizations had already fallen. 12 different species now existed only as memories and scattered refugees. Another section lost, reported Commander Hyan Wu from his station. The reptilian officer's scales had gone pale with stress. We have maybe an hour before they break through completely. Ho said nothing. There was nothing to say. They had tried everything. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy the combined forces of the Galactic Coalition could devise. Nothing worked. The Vraketherer learned from every attack and adapted. They were like a disease that became immune to medicine. Except this disease had teeth and ships in an endless hunger. Ambassador Giwu stood near the back of the command center, her small frame seeming even smaller in the chaos around her. She was young for a diplomat, barely into her 2nd decade of life. The Solan people aged slowly and lived in peace. Or they had until the Vraketherer came. Now her entire delegation was dead, killed in the first surprise attack. She had been promoted by default, the only one left alive who knew the protocols. She had spent the last 3 days searching through the archives of First Contact. Ancient records from when the galactic community was young and still discovering new species. Most of it was boring. Lists of planets, star charts, diplomatic agreements written in languages so old they needed translation programs to read. But then she found something strange. A frequency. A set of coordinates. A sector of space marked in red with warnings in every known language. Zone Null. Quarantined by order of the Galactic Council. No contact permitted. No ships allowed. Enforce on penalty of death. And beneath that, a single line of text that made her hands shake when she read it. Emergency use only. Extinction level events. Final option. Gu approached Deho's command station. Captain, I need to speak with you. He glanced at her with 2 of his eyes while the other 2 stayed focused on the battle. Ambassador, unless you have a miracle, it will have to wait. I might, she said quietly. That got his attention. All 4 eyes turned to her. Explain. She showed him her datapad with the information she had found. He read it quickly, his expression shifting from interest to horror. No, he said immediately. Absolutely not. We're dying out here, Giwu said. In an hour, maybe less, this fleet will be gone. The Vraketherer will move to the next system. Then the next. How many more civilizations will fall before there's nothing left? You don't understand what you're suggesting, Deho said. His voice was low and urgent. There are reasons those coordinates are forbidden. Reasons we don't speak about them, then tell me. Deho looked around the command center. The other officers were busy with the battle, but he lowered his voice anyway. 500 years ago, first contact was made with a species from that sector. They called themselves humans. It went badly. How badly? 3 species extinct in the first year. The humans didn't mean to do it. They were curious, eager, friendly even. But they were also violent in ways we couldn't understand. They fought each other constantly on their own world. When they met us, they brought those same instincts to space. They moved too fast, pushed too hard, didn't understand boundaries. When species defended themselves, the humans saw it as war. And when humans fight a war, they don't stop until the enemy is gone. Jiwoo felt cold. What happened? The council quarantined their entire sector. Locked them in with technology we developed specifically to keep them contained. We've had monitoring stations watching them ever since, but no contact. That was the agreement. They stay in their space, we stay in ours. We called them a Class 12 extinction risk, the highest classification. And you think they're worse than the Vraketherer? Deho watched another ship die on the screen. I think the Vraketherer are a force of nature. Humans are something else, something that chooses its violence. Another explosion rocked the command center. Hyanwu called out, "Forward shields are gone. We're open." Giwu looked at Deho. "We're out of time. Out of options. If we do nothing, we die anyway. At least this way, there's a chance." The captain's forearms trembled. He was old enough to remember the human wars, old enough to have lost friends to them. But he was also a soldier, and soldiers understood when a battle was lost. "Do it," he said finally. "Send the signal. May the ancestors forgive us." Gibbs' hands shook as she entered the coordinates into the communications array. The system gave her 3 warnings, each one requiring her to confirm she understood the risks. She confirmed them all. Then she pressed the transmit button. The signal burst out into space, faster than light, carrying a simple message in Galactic Common. "This is the Coalition Defense Fleet. We are under attack by an extinctional threat. 12 civilizations lost. Requesting immediate assistance. Coordinates attached. Please respond." They waited. Seconds felt like hours. The battle raged around them. More ships died. The Vrakther pressed closer. Then the communications console lit up. A response was coming in. But it wasn't in Galactic Common. The language was rough, broken, clearly translated by an old program that barely worked. "Message received. We understand. We're coming." "Hold on," Giwu felt tears on her face. Relief and terror mixed together. "They're coming," she whispered. Deho nodded slowly. He opened a ship-wide channel. "All vessels. This is Captain Deho. Reinforce defensive positions. Fight for every second. Help is coming." He didn't tell them what kind of help. He didn't tell them that they might have just traded one monster for another. He didn't tell them that in asking humanity for help, they might have doomed the galaxy in a different way, but they were alive. For now, that had to be enough. Hyanwu looked at his captain with questions in his eyes. Deho just shook his head. "Prepare the fleet for reinforcements. And pray to whatever gods you believe in that we made the right choice." In the darkness of space, the battle continued. The Vrakther pushed forward, sensing victory. The Coalition held on by threads. And somewhere far away, in a quarantined sector that hadn't been contacted in 500 years, ships began to move. The monsters were coming. The question was, which ones the galaxy should fear more? The fortress moon of Talos 9 had seen better days. Half of its surface was scarred from Vrakther attacks, and the temporary command center the Coalition had built into its core was running on emergency power. Guu sat in what passed for a briefing room, trying not to show how exhausted she was. Around her, surviving military leaders of 6 different species argued about their next move. The signal to the humans had been sent 3 days ago. The Coalition fleet had managed to survive by retreating behind the moon's defensive grid. The Vrakther had pulled back slightly, regrouping for what everyone knew would be a final assault. They had time, but not much. "We should evacuate," insisted a Vel3 general whose name Giwu couldn't remember. "Pull back to the core systems. Abandon the outer rim. And let the Vrakther have free access to 50 inhabited worlds." Hyanwu's tail lashed in anger. "That's surrender." Deho sat quietly at the head of the table, listening. He looked even more tired than Giwu felt. The weight of command was crushing him slowly. Then the alarms went off. Unknown ships entering the system, a technician called out. Multiple slip-space signatures. "They're big." Everyone rushed to the observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, they could see space rippling as something pushed through from faster-than-light travel. One ship appeared. Then another. Then another. 40 ships in total, each one at least a kilometer long. Guo stared at them with growing confusion. The ships looked wrong. They were angular and industrial, like someone had built them in a hurry without caring about appearance. Some had obvious repair patches. Others had different sections that didn't match, as if they'd been cobbled together from parts. They didn't look like a proper military fleet. They looked like a junkyard that had learned to fly. "Those are the humans?" Haiyan Wu said with disbelief. Those ships are ancient. Some of that technology is 500 years old. Maybe they haven't advanced much since the quarantine, someone suggested. A communication request came through. Daeho accepted it. The screen filled with a human face. Admiral Taejong looked younger than Jiwoo expected. Humans aged strangely, she had read. This one had dark hair, darker eyes, and a smile that made her uncomfortable. He was too relaxed, too happy, like someone about to go to a party instead of a war. "Hello," Taeyong said cheerfully. His galactic common was perfect, which was surprising. "I'm Admiral Taejong of the Earth's Defense Fleet. We got your message. Sorry it took a few days. Had to get the ships ready? You know how it is." Daeho recovered first. "Admiral, thank you for responding. The situation is critical. The Vraekthor." "Are we know about the Vraekthor?" Taeyong interrupted, still smiling. "We've been watching. Nasty things. Good fight, though. Should be fun." The word fun hung in the air like a bad smell. Jiwoo saw the other coalition officers exchange worried glances. "We've prepared a full briefing," Daeho continued carefully. "Fleet positions, enemy capabilities, tactical analysis. Already got it," Taeyang said. "We've been monitoring your communications for the last 72 hours. Hope you don't mind. Had to make sure you were really in trouble and not just testing the quarantine." "You've been monitoring us?" Hyano's scales flushed with anger. "That's a violation of the quarantine?" Taeyong's smile didn't change. "We've been monitoring everyone for 500 years. All of you. Did you really think we just sat in our sector doing nothing? We watch. We learn. We wait. Now we're here." Gu felt sick. How much had the humans seen? How much did they know? "We should meet in person," Daeho said. "Coordinate strategy. Good idea. We'll come to you. Give us an hour." The screen went dark. The briefing room erupted in conversation. Arguments about trust and deception and whether they'd made a terrible mistake. Daeho held up one hand for silence. "They're here now," he said quietly. "Whatever they are, whatever they know, they're our only chance. Prepare a proper greeting. And someone find out everything we can about human customs. I don't want to accidentally start another incident." An hour later, a small human shuttle docked with the command center. Jiwoo stood with Daeho and a dozen other officers as the airlock opened. She had studied what little information existed about human biology. They were bipedal, bilateral symmetry, mammalian, predatory eyes facing forward, endurance hunters, persistence predators. What the files didn't prepare her for was how they moved. Admiral Taeyong walked with casual confidence, like he owned the space around him. Behind him came a shorter human woman, carrying a datapad and looking at everything with bright curiosity. "Captain Daeho," Taeyang said, offering his hand in the human greeting. "Good to finally meet in person. This is Dr. Biora, our xenobiology specialist." Daeho carefully shook the hand with one of his own. "Welcome to Talus 9, Admiral." Biora immediately walked up to a Vel-3 officer and started asking questions. Fascinating. "For arms, is the musculature distributed evenly, or is there a dominant pair? Do you have 4 separate nerve clusters, or one central processor? How does your cardiovascular system handle the extra limbs?" The officer backed away, clearly uncomfortable. Biora didn't seem to notice. "Biora," Taeyong said gently. "Personal space, right? Sorry, it's just so exciting." She turned to Giwoo. "You're Solon, right? I've read about your species. The bioluminescent communication patches are incredible. Can you show me?" "Perhaps later," Jiwoo managed to say. "We should discuss the military situation." They moved to the briefing room. Daeho began explaining the tactical situation, showing fleet positions and Vraekthor movement patterns on the holographic display. Taeyong listened quietly, his expression never changing from that slight smile. When Daeho finished, Taeyong said, "You've been fighting them wrong." The room went silent. "Excuse me?" Haiyan Wu said coldly, Treating them like a conventional military force, Taeyang explained. Formation, fighting, defensive positions, trying to minimize casualties. That's why you're losing. We're trying to preserve lives, Daeho said. Both our own people and that's why you called us? Taeyang's smile faded slightly. You want to win? You need to fight like they do. Like an infection. Like something that doesn't care about rules. We have laws of war, a Velthri general protested. Ethics. Standards. We have those too, Biera said, looking up from her datapad. We just know when to ignore them. Jiwoo felt cold. This was what Daeho had warned her about. This casual acceptance of violence, this willingness to cross lines. Taeyang stood and walked to the holographic display. He manipulated it with quick, practiced movements. Here's what we're going to do. We hit them here, here, and here. Simultaneous strikes. We use their own biology against them. Bior has already analyzed their communication patterns from your sensor records. We can disrupt their hive mind, make them confused, scared. The Vraketer don't feel fear, Hyenwoo said. Everything feels fear, Taeyang said quietly. You just need to know which buttons to push. And humans are very good at finding buttons. The briefing continued for another hour. With each suggestion, Giwoo felt more uncomfortable. The humans proposed tactics that bordered on war crimes. Using biological weapons. Targeting command nodes, even if it meant civilian casualties. Psychological warfare that seemed designed to torture. But they also proposed ways to save refugee populations. Ways to evacuate trapped civilians. They talked about minimizing long-term damage to planets. It was confusing. They seemed to care and not care at the same time. Finally, Daeho said, "When can your fleet be ready to engage?" "We're ready now," Taeyang said. "Been ready since we got here. Just waiting for you to give the word. Then we attack at dawn." Daeho looked around the room. "Coordinate with the human fleet. Follow their lead. And may the ancestors watch over us." As the meeting broke up, Giwoo found herself walking beside Biora. The human woman smiled at her. "You're scared of us," Biora said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Jiwoo admitted. "Good, you should be." "We're scary." Biora's smile was oddly gentle. "But we're on your side. That's what matters, right?" Gu wasn't sure how to answer that. She watched the humans leave, heading back to their shuttle. They moved like predators. Like hunters. Like something that had been locked away for 500 years and was finally free. Daeho stood beside her. "We've unleashed them," he said quietly. "I know. Whatever happens next is on us. I know that too." They stood in silence, watching the stars, waiting for dawn and the battle that would decide everything. The Higara Trench was a natural formation in space where 3 asteroid fields converged, creating a narrow passage between star systems. The Coalition had tried to hold it 3 times. 3 times they had failed. Now they were trying again.
Oh.
But this time, with the humans leading the assault. Gu watched from the command ship as the human fleet moved into position. 40 ships against an estimated 50,000 Vraketer vessels. The math didn't make sense. It was suicide. "They're really doing this," Hyenwoo muttered beside her. 2,000 human soldiers against that entire swarm. Daeho said nothing. He had been quiet since the briefing yesterday. Gu understood why. This wasn't a battle plan. It was barely controlled chaos. The humans had refused to coordinate properly with coalition forces. They just said, "Stay back and watch. We'll handle it." Human ships spread out in a formation that made no tactical sense. They were too far apart to support each other, too exposed to enemy fire. Every military textbook said they were positioned wrong. Then the music started at first. Jiwoo thought something was wrong with the communications array. A horrible sound was blasting across every frequency. Loud, aggressive, with a pounding rhythm that made her head hurt. Human music, she realized. Something they called metal. What are they doing? Someone asked. Psychological warfare, Bior's voice came through the communication line. She was on one of the human ships. Humans learned a long time ago that fear is a weapon too. The Vraketer have never heard music before. They don't know what it is. Their hive mind will be trying to process it, trying to understand if it's a threat, mixed with the music or other sounds, screams, roars, things that sounded like monsters from nightmares. Later, Jiwoo would learn these were from human movies, stories they told to scare themselves. The Vrakther swarm responded exactly as predicted. They moved toward the human ships, surrounding them. The trap was set. The humans were about to be overwhelmed, except they didn't try to escape, Sergeant. Namseek stood in the boarding tube of the human ship Indomitable, watching his tactical display. His squad of 20 Marines stood behind him, checking their weapons one last time. They didn't talk much. There wasn't anything to say. The first Vrakther ship made contact with their hull. The creatures began cutting through. Standard procedure was to defend the ship, protect the hull integrity, fight from defensive positions. Namseek ordered his squad to open the airlock. The Vrakther poured in, expecting resistance. Instead, they found themselves in a narrow corridor with humans waiting at the far end. The creatures screamed their hive mind war cry and charged. Namseek's squad opened fire, not with energy weapons, which the Vrakther had learned to adapt to. With projectile weapons, old-fashioned bullets made of metal that punched through organic matter without giving the hive mind time to evolve defenses, but that wasn't the clever part. The bullets were coated with a chemical compound Biora had developed, something that reacted with Vrakther biology, making their own acid blood turn against them. When a Vrakther was shot, it didn't just die, it melted, and the melting spread to the creatures nearby. In 30 seconds, half the boarding party was gone. The rest tried to retreat. Namseek's squad pursued them back into the Vrakther ship. The Vrakther had never been boarded before. They were always the ones doing the boarding. They didn't know how to fight on their own ships. The humans moved through the organic corridors like they'd practiced it 1,000 times, which they had. For months, they'd been studying Vrakther ship layouts from sensor data. They knew exactly where to go. Namseek found the ship's nerve cluster, the part of the vessel that connected to the hive mind. He planted charges while his squad covered him. 3 minutes later, they were back on their own ship. The Vrakther vessel exploded from the inside. This same scene was playing out across all 40 human ships. Boarding actions. Internal sabotage. Turning the enemy's biology into a weapon. The Vrakther swarm, which had been so confident, began to falter. On the command ship, Lieutenant Sujin sat at the tactical console, humming a pop song under her breath. She looked like she was playing a video game, not coordinating a battle that would decide the fate of civilizations. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease. "Orbital strike on coordinates 77 Alpha," she said cheerfully. 3, 2, 1. Mark. A beam of concentrated energy lanced down from the human command ship, punching through 5 Vrakther vessels in a single shot. Sujin watched the explosions with a satisfied smile and checked something off on her data pad. Next target, 9-3 Beta. Firing Jiwoo watched in horror and fascination. Sujin was killing thousands of creatures with each shot, and she looked like someone organizing a grocery list. There was no hesitation, no remorse, no emotional reaction at all. How can she be so calm? Jiwoo whispered. Day-ho had no answer. He was too busy watching the battle unfold. The Vrakther were retreating. Actually retreating. In 2 years of war, the Coalition had never seen them back down from a fight. But then something unexpected happened. The Coalition sensors detected something behind the Vrakther lines. Life signs. Thousands of them. Not Vrakther. The people who had been captured from previous battles, refugees, civilians, prisoners waiting to be absorbed into the hive mind. "We need to pull back," Hyeon-woo said. "If we keep pressing, the Vrakther will kill the prisoners." "The humans won't stop," Daeho said. "This is their momentum. If we call them off now, then we're no better than the enemy," Gu said. "Those are people down there." "Our people." Daeho opened a channel to Taeyang. "Admiral, we have civilian life signs behind enemy lines." We know, Taeyang said. "We've known for the last 10 minutes. Namseek's already on it." The tactical display shifted. 3 human transport ships had broken formation and were heading directly into the Varakthar concentration. It was insane. It was impossible. Namsik's squad hit the prison ships hard and fast. They moved through the Varakthar guards like shadows, silent and deadly. Namsik found the first group of prisoners in what looked like organic holding cells. They were different species, all terrified. Many injured. A small child, some species Namsik didn't recognize, stared at him with wide eyes. The universal expression of fear, Nam-Sik, knelt down slowly. He removed his helmet so the child could see his face. "It's okay," he said in broken galactic common. "We're here to help. You're safe now." He picked up the child carefully, settling the small form on his back. Then he stood and started moving, still fighting, still shooting, but now with a child clinging to his shoulders. His squad did the same, fighting their way back to the transport ships while carrying wounded civilians. It should have been impossible. Moving while protecting others, fighting while vulnerable. But the humans did it anyway. They fought harder, faster, more viciously, because they had something to protect. The transport ships made it back to coalition lines. 473 civilians rescued. Not everyone, but more than would have survived otherwise. The battle lasted 6 more hours. When it was over, the Varakthar had lost 30% of their force. More importantly, they had learned something they'd never experienced before: fear. The hive mind understood now that there was something worse than them in the galaxy. Gu watched the human ships regroup. Some were damaged. A few had been destroyed. But they'd won. They'd actually won. Bohr's voice came through the communication line. "See, I told you we'd handle it, though I need to talk to your medical teams. Some of those prisoners have interesting injuries. We could learn a lot from Biara." Taeyong's voice interrupted. "Read the room, right? Sorry. I meant I want to help them." "Medically?" "That's what I meant." Daeho looked at Jiwoo. "They saved those people while killing thousands of others," Gual said quietly. "Is there a difference anymore?" Jiwoo didn't know. She watched Namsik's ship dock with the medical vessel. She saw him carrying the small child to the medical bay, moving with surprising gentleness. The same hands that had killed dozens of Varakthar were now carefully helping a terrified refugee. Sujin was still at her console, filling out reports, humming her pop songs, organizing the data from the battle like it was a normal day at work. The humans were monsters, but they were also saviors. Jiwoo was beginning to understand that maybe they were both at the same time, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. In the darkness of space, the Varakthar swarm retreated to regroup. For the first time in their species' history, they felt something other than hunger. They felt doubt. They felt fear. They felt like prey. And in the human ships, soldiers checked their weapons. Medics treated the wounded, and someone started playing music again. Quieter this time. Something gentle and sad, a reminder that the monsters who fought for them were still human after all. 3 weeks after the Battle of Higara Trench, the war had changed completely. The Varakthar were retreating on every front. Human tactics and technology had given the coalition something it hadn't had in months: hope. But hope came with a price that Jiwoo was only beginning to understand. She stood in the diplomatic chambers of Talus 9, reading reports that made her sick. The humans had won 7 major battles in 3 weeks. They had saved 4 worlds from complete absorption. They had rescued thousands of prisoners. But the methods they used haunted her dreams. Captured Varakthar were being kept alive for study. BOR's research teams were learning everything about their biology, testing different weapons, trying various chemicals. The creatures screamed. The hive mind felt every death, every experiment, every moment of pain. Is this necessary? Jiwoo had asked Biora during a research facility tour. Yes, Biora had answered simply. Every piece of data we collect saves lives. Theirs and ours. Would you prefer I let more people die because I was too squeamish to do difficult work? Jiwoo had no answer to that. The coalition military commanders had their own concerns. They gathered in daily briefings where Admiral Taeyong would present plans that violated every rule of warfare they knew. And every time, They found themselves agreeing because the alternative was losing. Heian-Woo had stopped arguing after the second week. He just voted yes and left the meetings looking older each time. Other commanders were the same. They approved biological weapons. They authorized attacks on civilian infrastructure that the Vraekther used. They agreed to tactics that would have gotten them court-martialed a month ago. "We're becoming like them," Heian-Woo said to Ji-Woo one evening. "Like the humans. Making the same choices they do." "Maybe that's what survival requires," Ji-Woo said. But she didn't believe her own words. She needed to understand. That's why she requested permission to visit a human ship. Not just any ship, but one of their main vessels where the crew lived and worked. She needed to see who these people really were beyond the battlefield. Dae-Ho went with her. They took a shuttle to the human carrier Resilience, one of the larger ships in their fleet. As they approached, Dae-Ho pointed out the details Ji-Woo had missed in tactical displays. The hull was painted with images, art, pictures of Earth, a blue and green planet, images of people, presumably human heroes, words in their various languages. "They decorate their warships," Dae-Ho said with surprise. The inside was even more shocking. The corridors had paintings on the walls. Real paintings, not digital displays. Artwork by the crew. Music played softly through speakers. Human music, but not the aggressive kind from battle. This was gentle, with singing voices and soft instruments. A human woman passed them in the corridor. She smiled and said hello. Just like that, a friendly greeting in the middle of a warship during an active military campaign. Behind her came two more humans, laughing about something. Actually laughing? "They're happy," Ji-Woo whispered. "They're still human," Dae-Ho reminded her. Still, the species that was quarantined for being too dangerous? Young-Ho met them in what the humans called a common area. He was a trauma counselor, he explained. His job was to help soldiers and civilians deal with the psychological impact of war. He looked kind, gentle. Nothing like the warriors Ji-Woo had seen in battle. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with us," Ji-Woo said. "Of course. Though I should tell you, I'm also here to evaluate you both." Young-Ho smiled apologetically. Standard procedure for allies who've been exposed to human combat doctrine. We know what our methods can do to people who aren't used to them. They sat in comfortable chairs. The room had plants. Real living plants growing in pots. Windows that showed the stars. It felt more like someone's home than a military vessel. "I need to understand," Gi-Woo said. "How can your people be so kind here and so brutal in battle?" Young-Ho was quiet for a moment. "Because we've learned that war and peace are different states of being. In war, you do what's necessary to win and to protect. In peace, you remember why you're fighting. We have extensive mental health protocols because we know what violence does to people. We've been doing this to ourselves for thousands of years. It doesn't make it better," Dae-Ho said. "No," Young-Ho agreed. "It just makes it honest. We know what we are. We've spent 500 years in quarantine thinking about it, trying to be better. But when you called for help, we came because that's what we're trying to be. Monsters who protect instead of destroy." Gu saw posters on the walls. Mental health resources. Support groups. Meditation schedules. Art therapy sessions. The humans had built an entire support structure around helping their people stay sane during war. "We see our own therapists," Young-Ho continued. "Every soldier, every officer, everyone who fights. Mandatory sessions. We talk about what we've done, what we've seen, how we feel about it. Because if we don't process it, it destroys us, and that makes the violence acceptable," Ji-Woo asked. "It makes it survivable," Young-Ho said. "There's a difference." Later, Tian gave them a tour of the ship. He showed them the medical bays where human doctors were treating coalition wounded. He showed them the engineering sections where humans worked alongside alien technicians to improve ship systems. He showed them the memorial wall. It was a long corridor with names engraved on metal plates. Thousands of names. Gu read the header text in various human languages. She used her translator. "Those we failed. Never forget." These are the species that died in first contact, Taeyang explained quietly. Every human child learns these names. Every human knows what we did. This ship has carried this memorial for 300 years. Every human vessel has one. Daeho's voice was rough. You remember them. Always, Taeyang said. It's why we accepted the quarantine without fighting. It's why we spent 500 years watching the galaxy, protecting it from ourselves. It's why we came when you called. Because we owe a debt that can never be fully paid. Gi-woo saw that his eyes were wet. This cheerful admiral who smiled through battles was crying as he looked at the names of the dead. What? We're not good people, Taeyang said. We're capable of terrible things, but we're trying. Every day we try to be better than we were. When you called, we saw a chance to use what we are for something, right? To be the monsters that fight other monsters. They visited the research labs next. Bora was there working with Vraxer samples. But she also had other projects. Medicines for coalition species. Vaccines. Treatments for injuries that the Vraxer caused. I study how to kill them, Biora said. But I also study how to save you. Both matter. Both are part of the work. She showed them her results. Breakthrough treatments that would save thousands of lives. Medical technology that she developed by understanding alien biology. All of it came from the same research that created weapons. It's all connected, Biora explained. Understanding life means understanding death. I can't develop medicine without understanding disease. I can't save people without knowing what kills them. The Vraxer taught me things about biology I never knew, and I'm using that knowledge for both destruction and healing. Gu watched her work. Biora was focused, brilliant, completely absorbed in her research. She cared about the data. But she also cared about the results. About saving lives. It was confusing and contradictory, and somehow made sense. That evening, Jiwoo and Daeho returned to their shuttle. They sat in silence for a long time. They're not what I expected, Daeho finally said. What did you expect? Monsters. Just monsters. But they're people. Complicated. Damaged. Trying people. Does that make what they do acceptable? Daeho sighed. I don't know anymore. Maybe there's no such thing as clean hands in war. Maybe survival always costs something. A message came through from the front lines. Another victory. Another world saved. The Vraxer were requesting communication, not with the Coalition. With the humans specifically. They want to talk, Giwoo said, reading the report. The hive mind wants to negotiate. After 2 years of war, they want peace. Daeho laughed bitterly. 3 weeks of humans, and they're ready to surrender. The next day, the Coalition gathered for the communication. The Vraxer hive voice spoke in its collective consciousness way, all voices at once. We understand now. We thought we were the ultimate form. We were wrong. Humans showed us there are worse things than us. We will withdraw. We will return to our space. We ask only to be left alone. Taehung's response was simple and terrifying. You'll withdraw completely. You'll release all prisoners. You'll provide reparations for the world you destroyed, and you'll never leave your home system again. If you do, we'll find you, and next time we won't be gentle. The Vraxer agreed to everything. Jiwoo realized that the humans had done what 2 years of coalition warfare couldn't. They'd broken the Vraxer completely. Not just defeated them, traumatized them, made them afraid. She didn't know if she should be grateful or horrified. Maybe both. Maybe that was the point. 6 months after the war ended, the Galactic Council chamber on Velos Prime was filled with representatives from 63 species. Giwoo stood among them, wearing her formal diplomatic robes. She wasn't just a young ambassador anymore. She was the person who had called the humans. Some species saw her as a hero. Others saw her as the one who had unleashed chaos. The council was meeting to decide. One question: should humanity be allowed to rejoin the galactic community? The debate had been going for 3 days. Jiwoo had heard every argument. Some species were grateful. The humans had saved worlds, rescued millions. Stop the breakthrough when no one else could. Other species were terrified. They had seen what humans could do. They remembered the old stories. They didn't want monsters living next door, even friendly ones. Today would be the final decision. Today, they would vote. Council Elder Unicio stood at the center of the chamber. She was human, selected to speak for Earth because she had diplomatic experience and a calm manner. She was old, her hair white, her face lined with age, but her voice was strong. I know you're afraid of us, Unicio said. You should be. We're dangerous. We've always been dangerous. 500 years ago, we proved that. First contact was a disaster because we didn't understand ourselves well enough. We moved too fast, pushed too hard, hurt people we were trying to befriend. She paused, letting her words settle. But we learned. That's what humans do. We make terrible mistakes, and then we spend generations trying to fix them. The quarantine wasn't just punishment. It was a gift. Time to grow up. Time to understand what we are and how to control it. A Vel-3 counselor stood. You nearly drove 3 species to extinction. Why should we trust you now? You shouldn't, Unicio said simply. Trust isn't given. It's earned. We know that. We're asking for the chance to earn it. We saved your people from the breakthrough. Not because we wanted gratitude or payment. Because it was right. Because we could. Because someone needed to. You traumatized an entire species, another counselor said. The breakthrough are broken. They'll never recover from what you did to them. Neither will the 12 species they destroyed, Unicio replied. Neither will the millions they killed. We stopped them. We made sure they'll never hurt anyone again. If that makes us monsters, then we're monsters who saved you. The chamber erupted in argument. Ju listened to species debating human nature, arguing about morality and survival, questioning what it meant to be civilized. Then Deho stood. The old captain commanded respect. When he spoke, people listened. I was alive during first contact, he said. I lost friends to human violence. I voted for the quarantine. I believed humans were too dangerous to exist among us. He looked around the chamber. I was wrong. Not about the danger. They are dangerous. But I was wrong about what that means. He walked to the center of the chamber, standing beside Unicio. 3 weeks. That's how long it took humans to change a war we'd been losing for 2 years. 3 weeks to make an unstoppable enemy surrender. They did what all our fleets, all our strategies, all our civilization couldn't do. And yes, they did it with methods that horrify us. But they also saved thousands of civilians. They rescued prisoners. They developed medicines that will help our people for generations. Deo's 4 arms gestured to the gathered species. Humans carry darkness so we don't have to. They do the terrible things that survival sometimes requires. And then they feel guilty about it. They remember it. They build memorials. They go to therapy. They teach their children about their mistakes. They're not perfect, but they're trying. That's more than we can say for many species in this chamber. Jiwoo stood next. Her voice shook, but she spoke anyway. I called them. I sent the signal. I knew the risks, and I did it anyway, because we were dying. I expected monsters. And that's what I got. But I also got saviors, heroes, people who put themselves in danger to protect strangers. I got soldiers who carried children on their backs while fighting. I got doctors who developed medicines while creating weapons. I got a species that somehow manages to be both the worst and best of what intelligent life can be. She looked at the council. They're not asking to be trusted blindly. They're asking for a chance. They've been in exile for 500 years, watching us, protecting us from themselves. They came when we called for help. They're offering to stay and help rebuild, to share their technology, to be part of the community they once hurt. If we say no, we're not just rejecting them. We're rejecting the possibility of redemption. We're saying that mistakes can never be forgiven, that change isn't possible. Hyan-Woo stood next, the skeptical commander who had argued against every human proposal at first. They taught me something, he said gruffly. They taught me that sometimes survival requires getting your hands dirty, that protecting innocent people means making hard choices. I don't like it. I don't like them, but I respect them. And more importantly, I trust them to do what needs doing when no one else can or will. We were species that had been saved spoke, refugees who had been rescued, soldiers who had fought beside humans, scientists who had studied their technology, medical staff who had used their treatments. Not everyone supported them. Some species still feared, still remembered, still couldn't forget what humans had done centuries ago. Finally, the vote was called. Each species would decide: accept humanity back into the galactic community with conditions, or maintain the quarantine. The voting took an hour. Electronic systems tabulated the results. Jiwoo held her breath. The result appeared on the main display: 47 in favor, 16 against. Humanity would be readmitted, but with conditions. They would have permanent observers on the Galactic Council. Their military would be monitored. They would continue their mental health programs. They would accept oversight of their research. They would prove continuously that they had changed. The chamber erupted in cheers and protests. Unesio stood quietly, tears running down her face. "Thank you," she said simply. "We'll earn this. I promise." The celebration that night was complex. Relief and worry mixed together. The humans threw open their ships for visitors. Music played, human food was served. Cultural exchanges happened in real dash time. Gu found herself on the observation deck of the Resilience, looking at the stars with Taeyang. The Admiral was drinking something called whiskey. She had something from her own world, a light wine that tasted of flowers. "You gave us a future," Taeyang said quietly. "When you sent that signal, you gave us a chance to be something other than the species locked away for being dangerous." "Thank you. You saved us," Gu replied. "You were everything I feared and everything I hoped for. We're not done earning your trust." "I know, but you're trying. That's what matters." Below them, in the ship's common area, Namseek was playing with a group of alien children. The same serious soldier who had fought through Vrokthar ships was now making funny faces and letting small creatures climb on him. He had adopted 3 war orphans, different species, was learning to be a parent. Bora was hosting a seminar on xenobiology, sharing her research freely with coalition scientists. Some of them still looked uncomfortable with her methods, but they couldn't argue with her results. Young Ho had established the first interspecies psychological support network. Therapists from different worlds learning to help each other's people process trauma. Su-Jin had requested transfer to Coalition Special Operations Command. She would teach their tactics to coalition forces. Her cheerful humming would become familiar to soldiers across the galaxy. Hoenwu and Daeho sat together, sharing drinks and comparing military experiences. The old enemies finding common ground as warriors who had survived. On Earth, children were learning alien languages in school. Museums displayed artifacts from the civilizations they had saved. Cultural exchange programs were being established. Humanity was preparing to step out of isolation carefully, thoughtfully, with 500 years of lessons learned. Above the new galactic embassy on Earth, builders installed a stone engraving. Words in every human language in galactic common. Unesio had chosen them carefully. Never forget. Never again. Never alone. In deep space, the old quarantine beacons were being converted to something new. Not warnings to stay away, but markers of hope. The frequency that had carried Jiwoo's desperate plea now broadcast a different message. Earth Defense Fleet monitoring. Backup available if needed. We hope you never need us. But if you do, we're here. Always. The Vraekther remained in their home system, rebuilding, healing, learning to live with the fear humans had taught them. They would never expand again. Never consume. Never threaten. The trauma was permanent, but so was the lesson. Months turned to years. Humans integrated slowly into the galactic community. Some species remained wary. Others became close allies. Trust built gradually, one action at a time. Gu became a senior ambassador, working on human-alien relations. She never forgot the fear she felt when the human ships first arrived. But she also never forgot the relief, the hope, the realization that monsters could be heroes if they chose to be. Daeho retired eventually, but he visited human ships often. He taught at their military academies, sharing perspective from someone who had fought them and with them. He became a bridge between two very different ways of thinking about war.